Good morning, wood butchers. Well, time for some more troubleshooting and figuring things out. Isn't that what we all do? It's just part of enjoying anything we do in life. Anyways, my issue now is I have a little bit of a trip to the shop. Here's my trailer I use for hauling goods and stuff like that, moving things around. And my next project is picking up a 18-inch Laguna bandsaw. So it's going to be in that trailer. And challenge is, when I built everything up, I made a small miscalculation. Because of some local codes, we couldn't quite fit the shop near the front of the property. So I would unload everything from here or in front of the trailer if I'm hauling it from in the truck. And we got to go all the way down here with whatever we're taking into the shop. It's a gravel path. When we first moved in, it was just dirt. The movers had a heck of a time moving my thickness planer and joiner and table saw. They were none too happy. I've redone some landscaping here and built things up so I can move my drainage tube over. But now all I have to do is get it over this little lip. We got a puppy, and puppies and open spaces out in the country, who knows where he might end up. So I had a piece of fencing from our previous dog, so it's in place just to keep us a little bit sane, so at least he can run around a little bit. So gotta go underneath there. Then it comes around here to the shop. Well, that's a heck of a long way, and honking sheets of plywood and everything else, not a whole lot of fun. So I was at Princess Auto picking up stuff for the big trolley for hauling the Laguna, and I picked up a winch. I got some winch rope coming, so that's going to allow me to basically move the dolly in and out of the trailer. It's got a big ramp door, so I'll be able to winch it up and down that door safely. And I can use a drill on the end of here. So it's a 1/2-inch nut. I'm going to get one of those extended sort of couplers, extend it up and get a, sorry guys, get a socket. I had to let my brain think on that for a while. So I'll be able to use a drill on this to move it up and down pretty easy. It's not going to have a lot of load. It's just going up and down a slope. I'm not lifting the whole thing. But the other part of material management I've been thinking on is honking sheets of plywood. My goodness, 3/4-inch sheets of plywood are heavier than I remember, and I used to be able to move around 3/4-inch MDF without too much problems. When you're getting closer and closer to 50, it ain't a lot of fun. Anyways, so they had these on sale. Now, it says load capacity 200 pounds, and I got 2 of them. So these, I think, should roll on that uneven pathway and get up over the hump and get over the hump into the shop pretty easily. So I should be able to move large sheets of plywood, MDF, OSB, whatever I'm going to be using in the shop pretty easily. My materials are right there, fairly close to the door. Still got some cleaning to do, I know, sorry. So it's going to come in from the door and be sitting right about here, which then can either be placed in this area here on some sawhorses and broken down with a track saw, which I've been using quite easily, or straight onto the table saw, and it's all cleaned up. So that's today's project. Anyways, give me a little bit. I'll come up with some ideas. I'll troll YouTube, see what other guys have done, and give you some impressions on how I want to proceed with this. Remember, we're all just solving our own problems and trying to come up with ideas of what we have on hand. See you in a bit. All right, so after puttering around in the shop and seeing what I had some 2x material. I had a 2x6, which I ripped to 1 3/4 of an inch wide. That allowed me to put 2 3/4-inch sheets of plywood, MDF, or whatever inside there. Or if I got something bigger that's 1 1/2 inch, I can slide it in. That should work good. It's 14 inches long, so it should have a good bit of lever on it. So if you have it in the middle versus one end, I think it'll work well. I had some chunks of 3/4 inch plywood. I cut it down to 6 1/8. That's the only way it would cut in half. And 14 inches long as well. I'm gonna radius the corners, and I use the wheel itself as a template to cut both on the bandsaw rather than having to cut one and the other. I like this trick. Basically, I just use some masking tape, painter's tape, or whatever you want to use, and if you're just doing two like this where you're just cutting radiuses, I just wrap it up like a Christmas present, and it works really well. It holds them together. You could do the tape and the CA trick and those types of things, but I hate working with CA. This pops apart really easy. It holds it really stable unless you're really reef on it. As long as you're cutting nice and slow and gentle, it'll be fine. Then I'll just clean it up on the edge sander, and that should work out pretty darn good. So after I get that done, I'll get back to you with the next step. Okay, so all done up. My little trick always works a treat. You know, for something like this, it's not fine woodworking. Good enough for hand grenades and horseshoes. So what's now, I'm gonna take them all apart, set up my router table, put a 1/8 inch round over bit. I'm gonna round over those edges, so as I'm putting plywood in, it's not gonna chip or crack or gouge, or as little as possible, I'm hoping for. So anyways, I'm gonna round up all these edges on the part that might contact it, and then we'll glue it to those two things, put some screws in. Normally something like this I wouldn't glue it, but it's gonna be handling a lot of weight, so anyways. Just one little detail here. When I'm doing the glue up, I'm using, I don't know, 1 3/4 inch, sort of zinc screws. The problem is that they go more than halfway through. So I just marked the other side where the current screws are. So when I'm pre-drilling my holes, I'm not going to put it in exactly the same spot. Anyways, just a little detail that keep in mind. You got to watch the length of your screws and make sure you offset them just enough so they're not interfering with each other. Alrighty. Next part is done. So it nicely fits 2 bits of 3/4 inch stock. Everything's nicely rounded over, smooth. I didn't even bother sanding it. It's when you got a good router, usually it comes up pretty nice. Nice thing is it's going to clamp together and give it some leverage. I know some guys make it pretty wide and it's get a little floppy in there. But if we take one piece out, again, it's not going to flop around too much. And if you're really neurotic, you can make a little shim and throw it in there. So I'm pretty happy with that part. Next thing is to drill a hole for the axle. Now, I had a piece of threaded rod, which I thought was going to work perfect. That's a 3/4 inch hole. And I thought, yeah, I got a 3/4 inch piece of threaded rod. Nope, it's 5/8. So I got to figure that out. I'll probably just get a bushing and go between the threaded rod and the axle here when I need it. So now we're gonna drill a 5/8 inch hole. Goodness, I didn't drill a 3/4 inch. But I wanna get it very close to this. So I'm gonna have to do some measuring and stuff like that. The reason for that is I need as much clearance from this wheel as possible to the top of that fence gate that I have to go through. So do some calculating, break out the drill press, and drill some holes. Or actually just one really big hole. So as always, you never have exactly what you need, but as woodworkers, we all got to make do with what we got, right? So I had a 5/8 inch Forstner bit. It wouldn't go all the way through, so I marked up both sides, got the center line I wanted, and right to the bottom, no issues. Got a little bit of play in there. I know the threads are probably going to eat up the wood over time. I haven't figured out what to do with that yet. Actually, I might even soak that with CA glue and harden it up a little bit. That's an idea. Anyways, I'll see what happens. Otherwise, I can clamp, two nuts and some washers and sort of keep that from wiggling as much as possible. I'll figure that out as I go along, but Now it's time to cut some threaded rod to the right length. So I can now categorically say that these little battery powered grinders with a cutoff wheel are one of the best little gadgets around. For cutting ducting for the shop, dust collection system, for cutting rebar, for cutting threaded rod, they work just great. I can also state I probably should have had my work boots on because I think grinding in flip-flops is not considered a good safety standard. Dang, those sparks are really uncomfortable. Lesson learned. Again, you're not butchering wood if you're not doing something stupid. Don't follow my my example, please. Put proper footwear on when you're grinding. Well, all done. That's what it's going to look like for right now. Couple little details. Number one is that there actually is a small offset on the wheel itself, so it's not going to contact the board. I made sure that this was tall enough so that any wood would tip, it wouldn't rub on the wheels. You don't want big black marks on the nice maple or oak veneer plywood you're hauling around. It's pretty well balanced. It sits right in the middle. It's got a little bit of friction there. It'll actually sit by itself, which is nice because then you can load a sheet of plywood on there. Or if it is tilted, it's going to tilt a little bit, but you won't have to lift it up that high to get the sheet of plywood on. And it rolls beautifully. It's got a little heft, a little bit of momentum to it, which will help getting it up and over small obstacles. So the off-road plywood dolly is done. I'm just going to get those bushings for the inside of the axles here. And I'm also going to get some flat washers just to squeeze in there and get it settled up. As far as securing it, I double nutted one end, and on the other side I used a nylock nut. So I don't think this is going anywhere. I think once I get that bushing in there, it's going to be as solid as anything, and it's not going to flop around much. So anyways, thanks for spending a couple minutes with me, all you wood butchers out there, and go kill some flies if you can. Oh man, they're awful out here right now. Anyways, have a wonderful day, and keep it up.